Mm. Shri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalang Sri Guru Vaishnava Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahana Raghunathanam Sajivam Karaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Galita Sri Vishakanitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaurata Pujita Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaurata Pujita Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaurata Pujita Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji and Mataji, Dhanavad Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Mother, yeah, let us wait for another 5 minutes. I just shared the message to other devotees and then we'll start. I'll put one more song, then we'll start.
Okay, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Sapan Prabhu, Mataji. Yes.
Adhava Yadava Krishna, Yadukula Krishna. Adhava Krishna, Yadava Krishna, Yadukula Krishna. Sadhu Janata, Sadhu Janata, Sadhu Janata, Madhava 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 Krishna Shri Krishna Ambujalochana 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 Kambu Shubhagriva Ambujalochana Kambu Shubhagriva Bimbadhara Chandra Bimbadhara Chandra Bimbadhara Chandra Krishna Shri Krishna Champena Sagra Champena Lagna Sundika Sharada Chandra Janita Madana Sharada Chandra Janita Madana Krishna Shri Krishna Madhava Mahavadeva Krishna Yadava Krishna Yadukula Krishna Madhava Mahavadeva Krishna Yadava Krishna Yadukula Krishna Yadava Krishna Yadukula Krishna Krishna Shri Krishna
Hare Krishna. Sapan Kumar Prabhu, again, Dandavat Pranam. Akinchan Priya Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Gomati Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Lakshmi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Samyukta Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glory to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. So let us begin with Mangalacharana prayers and then we'll start reading, okay? Yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminite Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानंद माधवं श्री चैतन्यमीश्वरम् ओम अपवित्र पवित्रो वा सर्वावस्थं गतोऽपि वा यस्मरेत् पुण्डरीकाक्षं साभ्याभ्यन्तरं शुचिः श्री विष्णु श्री विष्णु श्री विष्णु पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकम् हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरि प्रिये हरे कृष्णा थैंक यू सो मच फॉर joining in this new year starting. Wish you all a very happy Krishna conscious happy new year. See, everything we just have to put Krishna in our activities. That's why Srila Prabhupada started this institute, Krishna Consciousness, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So the beauty of international society is the same philosophy following all over the world. And we are very fortunate, especially I am very fortunate to associate with devotees wherever I go, by Prabhupada mercy and Guru Maharaj mercy. So that way, wherever we are in situated, be in the Krishna consciousness, all of our activities, all of our dealings, Krishna centered activities. Krishna Kendrikritamaina, Krishna centered. So I hope this year will give much prosperity, spiritual health, happiness, and especially peace of mind in our lives. Definitely, I'll pray for all of you. Please pray for us also. Okay. So this year, we are into another new year. Of course, actually, I wanted to share one thing. Srila Prabhupada writes in Krishna consciousness, every day is a new year, new day, ever fresh. Actually, I want to share that one message, Prabhupada message. With that, we'll start for today readings. Okay, I wanted to share. Where did I share that one? Yeah, Srila Prabhupada message on the new year. Yeah, I'm sharing in the group right away. Okay, anybody opens up your phone and try to read. Okay, our Krishnanta Sayantram group, KTS. Yeah, please help yourself. Anybody, please read that.
December 31, 1966, New Year. Adena Prabhuji? Yes, Prabhuji.
From
Hayagriva Dasa, December 31st, goodbye 1966. Hare Krishna and Happy New Year. New Year's Eve, matchless gifts is crowded with devotees and visitors. Swamiji leads the Kirtana and we all chant and dance by candlelight. It is a celebration none of us will ever forget. Chant, chant. Swamiji tells us, and our chanting drowns out even the drunken revelry on 2nd Avenue. Again, Swamiji is waving magic. A list follows. Swamiji eats with us, sitting on his dais and talking amiably. He keeps insisting that Umapati, Shatsvarupa, and I take more prasadam. There is a bucket of gulab jamuns, ISKCON bullets, and we stuff ourselves. For us, every day is New Year's. Swamiji says, Krishna is always new, always fresh, and we are always celebrating him. Just to see how these people in Maya are celebrating, drinking poison to forget everything. Because they are frustrated, they want to forget. But for a devotee, it is just the opposite. The devotee wants to remember Krishna at all times.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai ho. That's what it is. Srila Prabhupada words, statements. For us, every day is New Year's. Krishna is always new because Krishna is always new, always fresh, Navayavvanamcha, and we are always celebrating him. Just to see how these people in Maya are celebrating. So, New Year means, too much business in that area. What is that business? Meat eating, intoxications, drinking liquor. You all must have experienced it, right? In the liquor shop, how many? It's a big queues to get liquor and purchase on that in New Year Day and celebrate that way. It is a completely Maya's illusion. Prabhupada writes here, just to see how these people in Maya are celebrating. Drinking poison to forget everything. See, material sense gratification is nothing but drinking poison. No. So December 31st is a big business day actually. Clubs, pubs, restaurants, these liquor shops. So that is the thing. To forget everything, yes, because they are frustrated, they wanted to forget it. But for a devotee, it is just the opposite. We also celebrate 31st night with our dear Lilam Prabhu, nicely organized 31st night, glorifying Supreme Lord, right? Dramas, kirtans, nice lecture to motivate us. The devotee wants to remember Krishna at all times. Here also, see, in this group I wanted to share. Anyway, yesterday I have shared in morning groups how I spent the 31st night and first and second. So here in Dallas, Texas, there is a wonderful temple called Sri Radha Kalachinji. Last 3 days, that means actually it started on 30th night, 30th night, December 30th night. At 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock, those 3 hours of chanting started. And then 31st, all day, 24 hours kirtan. And first, another 12 hours of kirtan. And second day, that is on Monday, yesterday, 2 days back, we had celebrated a beautiful festival called Pushpabhishekam. All the 5 lotus flowers, rose flowers petals, 5 types of rose flower petals, Pushpabhishekam performed on the deities, Shri Gaur Nitai, Gaur Jana Baldev Subhadeva, and presiding deities of Radha Kalachindi, Shri Radha Kalachindi. I'll share that videos. I'll still have to upload. Wonderful. It's pleasing to the eyes, mind, heart, our senses. So that's the thing. So I also celebrated nicely, spending all the time in the kirtan and performing that Pushpabhishekam, participated in all those programs. So blissful event actually. So that's the thing. As devotees, we celebrated opposite. This is going to be helpful for our spiritual progress. That is not going to beneficial. That is going to be degradations. That's the thing. So I wanted to show again here in this group also those 5 petals of Shri Radha Kalachandji, Pushpabhishekam, and then I do 3 minutes of kirtan, then we'll start reading. Okay, just want to share. Gone. I mean, see, flowers time is gone. Yeah, this for remembrance, for my remembrance. So these are the 5 with different total there. Actually, I wanted to show 5 types of. This is yellow rose petal, and this is what we say this color. Hare Krishna. Hey, in color under
Baby pink, Prabhu. Light
pink.
pink.
Pink yellow రెండు అయినాయా రైట్ yellow pink ఇది
White.
white number 3 4 red where is red
Yeah, red.
4 one more in the mixed ఉంది flower దాని లైఫ్ టైం అయిపోయింది ఈ ఫ్లవర్ ఇస్ సాఫ్ట్ రైట్ this is another flower total 5 types of rose petals so much devotees put so much effort to plucking the these rose petals 3 days of service there for 4 hours so close to $4,000-5,000 of money spent of course devotees donated money so that's the thing so it's a eye pleasing event actually eye mind manasu kallu hrudayam so that's the thing we welcomed that way in here in Dallas Texas okay 3 minutes only I won't take much time so 6:55 na so 7 o'clock we'll start reading okay I'll do 5 minutes of kirtan नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमद्राधना स्वामी नामिने नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमद् भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वतीदेवे गौरवाणि प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषण्यवादे पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा 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 हरे हरे actually I'll share that Sri Radha Kalchandra pic and then will come let me do it Sri Radha Kalchandra Bhagwan ki jai ho yes this is what a blissful glorious Supreme Lord this is the dressing on the day of for Pushpabhishekam I'm just sharing yeah Jai Shri Radha Kalchandra ki jai you are able to see my screen correct
Yes, Prabhuji.
Very good this
Beautiful,
is the
Prabhuji. Very good.
red color dress
Very nice, Prabhuji.
yes. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hariharaya Nama Krishnaya Davaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohana Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Tirupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunada Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunada Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Guru Deva, Srila Guru Deva, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Shri Radha Kalachan ji ki jai, Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Devi ki jai, Guru Parampara ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna. Yeah, let us start.
Prabhuji, what are the deities' name, Prabhuji? What is Krishna's name? Radha?
Kalachan ji. Kala.
Kala Chand. Okay.
Kalachan. Shri
Okay.
Radha Kalachan ji.
Okay, Prabhuji. Okay.
Yeah, Shri Radha Kalachan Bhagavan ki jai ho. Kala అంటే తెలుసు కదా మీనింగ్ చెప్పండి మాదే కాలా అంటే
అదే బ్లాక్ గా ఉన్నాడు కదా కృష్ణకి ఆ పేరు పెట్టినాడు
అంటే అవును ఇది ఇంకో విషయం ఏంటంటే ఈ డైటీస్ ఇది గ్రేట్ హిస్టరీ ఉంది యాక్చువల్గా 2000-year-old డైటీస్ యాక్చువల్లీ దీనికి స్టోరీ ఉంది ఐ విల్ షేర్ లేటర్ సో 2000-year-old డైటీస్ ఇవి ఆ యుఎస్కి ఎట్లా వచ్చింది ఎస్పెషల్లీ డాలస్ టెక్సస్కి ఎట్లా వచ్చింది ఇట్స్ స్టోరీ ఉంది ఐ విల్ షేర్ లేటర్ ఓకే థ్యాంక్ యూ విష్ యూ ఆల్ అగైన్ very happy Krishna conscious New Year. That's why I sing some kirtan for all of our. So invoke blessings of Supreme Lord. Yeah. So let us start our readings. So we are at chapter 4. Okay. So of this coming back book. So let me share. Yes. So before that, so far we have done in this coming back book. If you look at the topics. We have done with the first one preface, the quest for immortality. Main points are, if you want to gain real control over our destiny, you must understand reincarnation and how it works. It's that simple. So this entire book coming back is talks about the reincarnation according to Krishna's words. That means according to Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. Second one also we have done, introduction, the mystery of consciousness. Brings into focus the need to approach the proper source for elimination. Despite the many theories of scientists, no laboratory investigation has revealed the mystery of consciousness. So what is the consciousness having those feelings? What are the consciousness symptoms? What are the consciousness symptoms? What is that mystery? See, what is the difference between living body and dead body? What differentiates a different a living body and dead body? Consciousness, simple. Yes, that's what consciousness. As long as that consciousness, multiple names. Consciousness, pranam antamu, jeevam antam in Telugulo ide, right? Soul, because pranam, jeevam, the soul presence in that body. Soul, with the soul's pervading all the consciousness pervading entire body because of the soul's presence. So mystery of consciousness. We have seen that, right? Thinking, feeling, willing. Because of the consciousness is there, those are triggering things. Thinking, feeling, willing. Yes. And then chapter 1 talks about this completely scientific references We have seen, like, where they captured from different ideas, reincarnation ideas, from Socrates to Salinger, from philosophists, theologians, scientists, psychologists, etc. We have seen those different personalities and understanding their perspective of reincarnation, right? So what is that? Shows how reincarnation is profoundly influenced many of the world's greatest philosophers, poets, artists, from Socrates to Salinger. Next, the process of reincarnation is expounded in Bhagavad Gita, the oldest, most respected source book on the subject of transmigration of the soul is presented. And we have gone through chapter 2, chapter 3 also, changing bodies. Especially the verse talks about in the Bhagavad Gita, Dehinosmineta Dehe, Kaumaram Yavanam Jara, Tata Dehantaram Praptis, Dhirastatna Muhyati. A livingly dialogue. It's a dialogue version between a psychologist professor, Alfred Graf van Durkheim, with Srila Prabhupada. Clearly shows how the metal body and the antimetal particle is nothing but a soul. Okay, it's a different English word. Anti-material. That means it's not material, it is spiritual. What is there in our body? Spiritual, the soul. That's the thing. The spirit soul can never be the same. It is how the clearly shows how the material body and the anti-material particle, the spirit soul, can never be the same. Okay, chapter 3 talks about soul's research. A famous heart surgeon urges systematic research into the soul. And Srila Prabhupada sent a letter, actually. This is a letter format. Soul, and Srila Prabhupada cites the Vedic version, thousands of years older and strikingly more informative than the modern medical science. So soul resides, heart transplantation. So where soul resides, Prabhuji's Sanmata is, where soul resides?
In the core of the heart.
In the core of the heart. Then when heart surgeon takes away that heart, what happens to that soul? Anybody? Mataji's? Prabhu's? Still there. See.
It will be there, Prabhuji. I don't think soul will go. Only Krishna
Yeah.
can.
How can we
Krishna
understand?
decides.
How can we understand? Even though after our heart transplantation surgery taken place, the person's nature, the person's behavior, same, right? The soul is having those kinds of subtle things. The nature, the behavior, the person's acting, it won't change. And the soul cannot be perceivable with our blunt senses. Soul size is given in the Vedic literature 10,000 tip of the hair, that particle. So there is no bioscope, there is no telescope, something like, in the scientific advancement to see the soul. So we have to agree that when heart, only bodily part moves, but soul remains the same. Okay. So we have to understand. That's where the soul research talks about in the topic. So today we'll read 3 histories of reincarnation, chapter 4, 3 fascinating narratives from the Vedic text Srimad Bhagavatam. These accounts stand as classic examples of how the soul transmigrates through different types of bodies under the control of the precise laws of nature and karma. So anybody remembering? I think you all read some of the Bhagavatam first times. The 3 histories of reincarnation. There is one personality especially talks about.
What
Anybody?
is the question? Sorry.
Question is like, 3 fascinating narratives from the Vedic text Srimad Bhagavatam to talks about the histories of reincarnation. One personality is there. So that personality having 3 kinds of life. 3 different lives.
Acha, okay. Bharat Maharaj, Bharat Maharaj.
అదే ప్రభు సేమ్ అదే దాని గురించే శిల ప్రభుపాద రాస్తారు ఈ చిన్న బుక్ లో, కమింగ్ బ్యాక్ ఇది దీంట్లో. ఎస్, సేమ్ అదే. సో నౌ లెట్ us స్టార్ట్ విత్ యూ ఓన్లీ. స్టార్ట్ ప్రభు, పాకించండి ప్రభు. థ్యాంక్ యూ ఫర్ జాయినింగ్. థ్యాంక్ యూ ఫర్ allocating some time. Please come whenever you can get a chance, Prabhu. Okay? Yes.
Sure. Just a second, Prabhu. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Chapter 4, 3 Histories of Reincarnation. For thousands of years, the greatest spiritual teachers of India have used historical narrations found in Srimad Bhagavatam, like 3 included here, to illustrate for their disciples the principles of reincarnation. Srimad Bhagavatam, an epic philosophy and literary classics, holds a prominent position in India's voluminous written wisdom. The timeless knowledge of India is expressed in the Vedas, an ancient Sanskrit text that touch upon all fields of human understanding, known as the ripened fruit of tree of Vedic literature. Srimad Bhagavatam is the most complete and authoritative exposition of Vedic knowledge. The scientific principles of the reincarnation does not change with the passage of the time. They remain constant, and these timeless stories are as relevant to the modern seeker as they were to those who sought enlightenment in bygone ages.
Yes, Prabhu. Okay, point. The scientific principles of reincarnation do not change with the passage of time. They remain constant. The Vedic literature is eternal. Whatever knowledge we received from the Vedic literature is perfect knowledge. There is no second thought in this. Because since time immemorial, because Vedas is written by whom? We have said by whom? Krishna himself. Since Krishna is eternal, the knowledge is also eternal. Vedic literature also eternal. It won't change. So that's how it is. Hmm. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. We'll give it to other
Thank
devotees.
you.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Samyukta Mataji, please go ahead.
Yes, Prabhuji. The prince with a million mothers. Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. Bhagavad Gita 2.29. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting, writes British poet William Wordsworth in his famous Intimations of Immortality. And in another poem, he addressed the following lines to an infant: O sweet newcomer to the changeful earth, if as some darkling seeds have boldly guessed, thou hadst a being and a human birth, and wert erewhile by human parents blessed, long, long before thy present mother pressed thee, helpless stranger, to her fostering breast. In the following historical narration from Srimad Bhagavatam, King Chitraketu's son reveals his previous births and instructs the king and queen about the imperishable nature of the soul and the signs of reincarnation. King Chitraketu had many wives, and although he was capable of he did not receive a child from any of them, for his beautiful wives were all barren. One day, the mystic sage Angira came to Chitraketu's palace. The king immediately stood up from his throne and, as was the Vedic custom, paid his respects. O King Chitraketu, I can observe that your mind is disturbed. Your pale face reflects your deep anxiety. Have you not achieved your desired goals? The sage inquired. Because he was a great mystic, Angira knew the cause of the king's distress. But for his own reasons, he questioned Chitraketu as if in need of knowledge. Shall I read, Prabhuji? Or?
Read, Jan.
Yes, Prabhuji. King Chitraketu replied, O Angira, because of your great penances and austerities, you have acquired complete knowledge. You can understand everything, both external and internal, about embodied souls like myself. O great soul, you are aware of everything, yet you ask why I am in such anxiety. Therefore, in response to your order, let me disclose the cause of my suffering. A starving man cannot be satisfied with a garland of flowers. In the same way, my vast empire and immeasurable wealth mean nothing, for I am bereft of a man's true wealth. I do not have a son. Can you not help me to become truly happy and arrange for me to have a son? Angira, who was very much. Shall I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, where are you done? Thank you. Huh?
Yes, Prabhuji. Okay, thank you.
So here Prabhupada writes about one of the pastime from Srimad Bhagavatam, Chitraketu, the Angira's conversations. Let us see. Yeah, Gomad Mataji, can you read? Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna. Okay. Pallavi Mataji. I think Gomad Mataji, you are speaking on mute. I don't know. Anyway, Pallavi Mataji, would you like to read? Or Lakshmi Mataji, Lakshmi Pasulet Mataji. Sapan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare
Angir,
Yeah.
Prabhuji. Yeah. Okay, Prabhuji. Let Sampan Prabhuji read.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Prabhu.
Angira, who was very merciful, agreed to help the king. He performed a special sacrifice to the demigods and then offered the remnants of the sacrificial food to the most perfect of Chitraketu's queens, Krityoti. O great king, you will now have a son who will be the cause of both jubilation and lamentation. Angira said. The sage then vanished without waiting for the king's response. Chitraketu was overjoyed to learn that he would finally get a son, but he wondered about the sage's last words. Angira must have meant that I will be greatly happy when my son is born. That is certainly true. But what did he mean by the child being the cause of lamentation? Of course, being my only son, he will automatically become the heir to my throne and kingdom. Therefore, he might become proud and disobedient. That might be a cause for lamentation. But a disobedient son is better than no son at all.
Go ahead. Yes.
In the due course of time, Krityuti became pregnant and a son was born. Hearing the news, all the inhabitants of the kingdom rejoiced. King Chitraketu could not contain his joy. As the king carefully raised his infant son, his affection for Queen Krityuti increased daily, and he gradually lost affection for his barren wives. The other queens continuously lamented their fate, for a wife who has no sons is neglected at home by her husband, and by her co-wives treat her exactly like a maidservant. The barren queens burned with anger and envy. As their envy increased, they lost their intelligence and their hearts became hard like a stone. They met secretly and decided that there was only one solution to their dilemma. One way to regain the love of their husband: poison the child.
Yes.
One afternoon, as Queen Krityuti walked in the courtyard of the palace, she thought of her son sleeping peacefully in his room. Because she loved the child dearly and could hardly bear to be without him for a moment, she ordered the nurse to awaken him from his nap and bring the boy to the garden. But when the maidservant approached the child, she saw that his eyes turned upward and there were no signs of life. Horrified, she held a swab of cotton beneath the boy's nostril, but the cotton did not move. Seeing this, she cried out, "Now I am doomed," and fell to the ground. In great agitation, she struck her breast with both hands and wept loudly.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, see how she wanted to. Did not move. Seeing this, she cried out, "Now I am doomed." Now I fell to the ground. In great agitation, she struck her breast with both hands and wept loudly. See, that's the thing. Cause of lamentation, jubilation as well as cause of lamentation. So that's the thing. See how this material world, this past time we see. Let us continue. Yeah. Pallavi Mataji, can you read? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Pallavi Mataji, you are speaking on mute, Haribol?
Yeah, I think so, Prabhuji. I was not able to hear you also.
Okay.
I kept them in. Okay.
Some time passed. Continue.
Yeah. Some time passed, and the anxious queen approached the child's bedroom. Hearing the nurses wailing, ఇది when the queen కదా ప్రభుజీ ఇక్కడ నుంచి చదవాలి కదా ఆమె రీడింగ్ కరెక్ట్ ప్రభుజీ
పర్లేదు చదవండి
sometime passed, and the anxious queen approached the child's bedroom. Hearing the nurses wailing, she entered the room and saw that her son had passed from this world. In great lamentation, her hair and dress in disarray, the queen fell to the ground unconscious. When the king heard of his son's sudden death, he became nearly blind with grief. His lamentation grew like a conflagration, and as he ran to see the dead child, he repeatedly stumbled and fell. Surrounded by his ministers and court officers, the king entered the boy's room and collapsed at the child's feet, his hair and dress scattered in all directions. When he regained consciousness, he was breathing heavily. His eyes were filled with tears, and he was unable to speak. When the queen saw her husband merged in great lamentation and again viewed the dead child, she began to curse the supreme Lord. This increased the pain in the hearts of all the residents of the palace. The queen's flower garland slipped from her body, and her smooth jet black hair became tangled. Falling tears smeared the cosmetics beneath her eyes. O Providence, during the lifetime of the father, you have caused the death of his son. You are certainly the enemy of the living beings and are not at all merciful. Turning to her beloved child, she said, "My dear son, I am helpless and aggrieved. You should not give up my company. How can you leave me? Just look at your lamenting father. You have slept for a long time. Now please get up. Your playmates are calling you to play. You must be very hungry. So please get up immediately and take your lunch. My dear son, I am most unfortunate, for I can no longer sweet see your sweet smiling. You have closed your eyes forever. You have been taken from this planet to another place from which you will not return. My dear son, unable to hear your pleasing voice, I can no longer maintain my life." The king began crying loudly with an open mouth as the mother and father lamented. All their followers joined them, bemoaning the untimely death of the child. Because of the sudden accident, all the citizens of the kingdom were nearly unconscious with grief. చదవమంటారు ప్రభుజీ ఆపమంటారు
చదవండి చదవండి
when the great saga when the
Sage,
great
sage.
sage Angira understood that the king was almost dead in an ocean of sorrow, he went there with his friend Saint Narada. The two sages found the king overwhelmed by lamentation, lying like a dead body beside the corpse. Angira addressed him sharply, "Wake up from the darkness of ignorance. O king, what relationship does this dead body have with you? And what relationship do you have with him? You may say that you are now related as father and son, but do you think this relationship existed before this birth? Does it truly exist now? Will it continue now? Will it continue now that he is dead? O king, as small particles of sand sometimes come together and are sometimes separated due to the force of the ocean's waves, living entities who have accepted material bodies sometimes come together and are sometimes separated by the force of time. Angira wanted the king to understand that all bodily relationships are temporary. My dear king, the sage continued, when I first came to your palace, I could have given you the greatest gift, transcendental knowledge. But when I saw that your mind was absorbed in material things, I gave you only a son who caused you jubilation and lamentation. Now you are experiencing the misery of a person who has sons and daughters. These visible objects like wife, children, and property are nothing more than dreams. Therefore, O king, Chitraketu, try to understand who you really are. Consider where you have come from, where you are going after giving up this body, and why you are under the control of material lamentation. Then,
Yes, yeah.
mm,
Thank you, Mataji.
chal. Okay, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Let me ask. Sirisha Mataji, Swapna Mataji, Gomati Mataji, still there?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah. Swapna
Hare
Mataji
Krishna
చదివిన
Prabhuji.
తర్వాత స్వప్న మాతాజీ శిరీష మాతాజీ గోమతి మాతాజీ సీక్వెన్షియల్ గా చదవండి. స్వప్న మాతాజీ తర్వాత శిరీష మాతాజీ తర్వాత గోమతి మాత, ఓకేనా? యా,
Okay,
చదవండి.
Prabhu.
స్వప్న మాతాజీ చదవండి.
Okay. My
Yeah.
dear king, the sage continued.
అది అయిపోయింది మాతాజీ. యా, దెన్ నారద ముని.
Then Narada Muni did something very wonderful. By his mystic power, he brought the soul of the king's dead child into the vision of everyone. Immediately, the room became effulgent with a blinding brightness, and the dead child began to move. Narada said, O living entity, all good fortune unto you. Just see your father and mother, all your friends and relatives are overwhelmed with grief because of your death, because you died untimely. The balance of your life still remains. Therefore, you may re enter your body and enjoy the remainder of years allotted to you in this body with your friends and relatives. And later, you may accept the royal throne and all the
Opulences.
opulences given by your father. By Narada's mystic power, the living entity re entered the dead body. The child who had been dead sat up and began to speak, not with the intelligence of a young boy, but with the full knowledge of liberated soul. According to the results of my material activities, I, the living being, transmigrate from one body to another, sometimes going to the species of the demigods, sometimes to the species of lower animals, sometimes incarnating among the vegetables and appearing sometimes in the human species. In which birth were these two people, my father and mother? No one is actually my father and mother. I have had millions of so called parents. How can I accept these two people as my father and mother? The Vedas teach that the eternal living being enters a body made up of material elements. Here we find that such a living being entered a body produced by King Chitraketu and his wife. Actually, however, he was not their son. The living entity is eternal son of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because he wants to enjoy this material world, God gives him a chance to enter various bodies. Yet, the pure living being has no true relationship with the material body he gets from his father and mother. Therefore, the soul who had taken the body of Chitraketu's son flatly denied that the king and the queen were his parents. The soul continued in this material world, which is like a swiftly flowing river. All people become friends, relatives, and enemies in due course of time. They also act neutrally and in many other relationships. But despite these various transactions, no one is permanently related. Chitraketu was lamenting for his son, who was now dead, but he could have considered the situation otherwise. The living entity he could have thought was my enemy in my last life, and now, having appeared as my son, he is prematurely living just to give me pain and agony. Why should the king not consider his dead son his former enemy, and instead of lamenting, be jubilant,
Jubilant.
jubilant because of an enemy's death? The living being in the body of Chitraketu's child said, just as gold and other commodities are continually transferred from one place to another through buying and selling, so the living entity, as a result of his karma, wanders throughout the universe, being injected into various bodies in different species of life through the semen of one father after another.
ఇది ఒకసారి మళ్ళీ చదవండి మాతాజీ. వెరీ వెరీ ఇంపార్టెంట్
Yeah,
స్టేట్మెంట్.
the living being in the body of Chitraketu's child said, just as gold and other commodities are continually transferred from one place to another through buying and selling, so the living entity, as a result of his karma, wanders throughout the universe, being injected into various bodies in different species of life through the semen of one father after another. Hare Krishna.
ఎట్లా చెప్తున్నారు, ఎంత బ్యూటిఫుల్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్. గోల్డ్ అండ్ అదర్ కామోడిటీస్ continually transfer from one place to another through buying and selling. Similarly, the living entity, as a result of his karma, wanders throughout the universe, being injected into various bodies different species of life through the semen of the father after another. Yeah. Such a, so see that we right now we have father mother, so the is temporary, whatever the lifetime we are here, and after leaving this body we get another parents, another father mother, etc. So Prabhupada writes, millions of fathers mothers we have gone through, because the living entity passed through different species of life in different bodies. We have to understand our eternal original father is Krishna. What is that? Aham bija pradapita. Bhagavad Gita says, right? Aham bija pradapita. Yeah. Let us continue. Yes. Next Gomati Mata. Can you please read?
Yes, Prabhu. As explained in Bhagavad Gita, it is not by any father or mother that the living entity is given birth. The living entity's true identity is completely separate from the so-called father and mother. By the laws of nature, the soul is forced to enter the semen of a father and be injected into the womb of a mother. He cannot directly control the kind of father he will get. This is automatically determined by his activity in previous lives. The laws of karma force him to go to different fathers and mothers, just like a commodity that is bought and sold. The living entity sometimes takes shelter of an animal father and mother, and sometimes a human father and mother. Sometimes he accepts a father and mother among the birds, and sometimes he accepts a demigod father and mother in the heavenly planets. As the soul transmigrates through different bodies, everyone in every form of life, be it human, animal, tree, or demigod, gets a father and mother. This is not very difficult. The real difficulty is to obtain a spiritual father, a bona fide spiritual father. Therefore, the duty of a human being is to search out such a spiritual master, for under his guidance, one can become free from the cycle of reincarnation and return to his original home in the spiritual world. The living being is eternal. The pure soul continued and has no relationship with so called fathers and mothers. He falsely accepts himself as their son and acts affectionately. After he dies, however, the relationship is finished. Under these circumstances, one should not be falsely involved in jubilation and lamentation. The living entity is eternal and imperishable. He has no beginning and no end, nor dies he take birth or die. The living being is equal in quality to the Supreme Lord, but are spiritual personalities. But because the living entity is so small, he is prone to be illusioned by the material energy, and thus he creates bodies for himself according to his different desires and activities.
Continue.
The Vedas tells us that the soul is responsible for his lives in the material world, where he is trapped in the cycle of reincarnation, material body after material body. If he likes, he can remain suffering in the prison house of a material existence, or he can return to his original home in the spiritual world. Although God arranges through the material energy to give the living beings the bodies they desire, the Lord's true desire is that the conditioned souls get off the punishing merry-go-round of material life and return home back to Godhead. Hari Bol.
Mhm. Very self-explanatory. Very nicely explained by Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Mataji. Sirisha Mataji, can you read? Hare Krishna Mataji. I think you are speaking on mute.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Mataji. Please go ahead and read this one.
Yes, Prabhuji. Suddenly, the boy becomes silent as the pure soul left the body of the child and the body fell lifeless to the floor. Chitraketu and the other relatives were astonished. They cut the shackles of their affection and gave up their lamentation. Then they performed the funeral ceremony, cremating the body. Queen Jiti
co-wives who had poisoned the child were very much ashamed while lamenting. They remembered the instructions of Angira and gave up their ambition to bear children. Following the directions of the Brahmana priest, they went to the bank of the Skad river Yamuna, where they
Sacred.
bathed Saked river Yamuna, where they bathed and prayed daily, atoning for their sinful activities. Because King Chitraketu and his queen had become fully cognizant of spiritual knowledge, including the science of reincarnation. They easily gave up the affection that leads to pain, fear, grief, and illusion. Although this attachment for the material body is very difficult to overcome because they served it with the sword of transcendental knowledge, they were able to give it up very easily.
Yes, Mata. You can continue here. This is another section. Yes.
Yes.
So what we have to understand by reading this, even though that, so much attachment, he wanted to have children, he wanted to have son, especially Chitraketu. Finally got it. And suddenly the child died because of enviousness, other co-wives poisoned to him and that he died. And that is lamentation. See, this is an instruction. So these are all material bodies, material son, material daughters. So some people think that, in a family, girls, there are no sons. Some people say that, oh, you don't have son. So there are material concepts. There is no problem with that family. But in the material society says, so see, that's the concept is there. So at least one son should be there in a family. What's the concept? You have to understand from Chitraketu and Kritadyuti's life. These are all material bodies. And last lines are very important, because King Chitraketu and his queen Kritadyuti had become fully cognizant because of the spiritual knowledge, including the science of reincarnation. They easily gave up the affection that leads to pain. See, that's the thing, Prabhuji and Mataji. The more we attach, the more it's going to be painful situation. See, the more we attach to material things, when it lost, so much pain, fear, grief, etc. మనం బాధపడుతుంటాం. సో అందుకే అటాచ్మెంట్ అనేది వీ హ్యావ్ టు సబ్డ్యూడ్ త్రూ ద ట్రాన్స్జెండల్ నాలెడ్జ్. ఎక్కడ అటాచ్మెంట్ పెట్టాలి, ఎక్కడ మనం కాన్సన్ట్రేషన్ చేయాలి అనేది మనం చూసుకోవాలి. ఎట్లా అంటే త్రూ రీడింగ్ ద స్క్రిప్చర్స్. ఫస్ట్ ఇట్స్ కాల్డ్ శాస్త్ర చక్షు. భగవంతుని చూడాలి, భగవంతుని స్పర్శించాలి అంటే అది మనం త్రూ ద scriptural knowledge, through the eyes of the scriptural knowledge, Shastra Chakshu. See, although this attachment for the material body is very difficult to overcome, see, it's an easy thing. See, it's not very easy thing to come out this attachment for the material body. It's very difficult to overcome because they means and Chitraketu and queen severed it with the sword of transcendental knowledge. They were able to give it up very easily. See, with the shining lamp of knowledge, darkness, ignorance. So sloka untadi 10th chapter 8, 9, 10, 11th verse. Tesham evanu kampartam aham ajnana jamtama nashayamyatma bhavastu jnana deepena bhashvata. So we have to cut this ignorance through the transcendental knowledge. Through the spiritual knowledge, nothing but spiritual knowledge. What is soul? What is metal body? What is temporary body? What is spiritual body? What is the purpose? How metal body is changing? Why I need to take again birth? What are the 4 problems of life? Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. What are the 3 sufferings? Adhyatmika, Adidayivika, Adibhodhika. So these are the concepts we learn from scriptures to understand temporary nature of this world, where it helps us to understand the spiritual nature of is eternal. Thus, the understanding of the soul concepts and acting on the spiritual platform is good for us, not on the material platform. Acting on the material platform, acting on the spiritual platform means acting on the material platform is selfish to satisfy our bodily demands, sense gratification. Whereas acting on the soul platform, give it up, those attachments, selflessly, and trying to strive it for our spiritual benefit, to have to work on it. With the transcendental knowledge only, it can be possible. So because this transcendental knowledge given by our eternal Father, Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. Okay, so let us see another section. We can continue, Mataji, another 2-3 paragraphs. Sirisha Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Please go ahead.
ఈ మొత్తం వస్తలేదు ప్రభుజీ. ఒక్క నిమిషం. వచ్చింది. నేను జూమ్ చేసిన ఫోన్ లో జాయిన్ అయినాను ప్రభుజీ. A victim of affection. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, similarly the soul accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Bhagavad Gita 2.22. In the 1st century, the Roman poet Ovid penned these verses describing the fate of an unfortunate person who, by his actions and desires, slide a few notches down the evolutionary scale. I am ashamed to tell you, but I will tell you. I had bristles sprouting on me. I could not speak, but only grunting sounds came out instead of words. I felt my mouth grow harder. I had a snout instead of a nose, and my face bent over to see the ground. My neck swelled up with great muscles, and the hand that lifted the cup to my lips made footprints on the ground. Metamorphosis. Srimad Bhagavatam.
ఇది ఎవరు రాశారంటే ఇది ఒక పోయట్, హౌ ద ఫేట్ ఆఫ్ ఎన్ అన్ఫార్చునేట్ పర్సన్ బై హిస్ యాక్షన్ డిస్లైడ్ ఏ ఫ్యూ నాచెస్ డౌన్ ద ఎవల్యూషనరీ స్కేల్. అంటే ఈ పోయట్స్ కూడా సమ్ స్పిరిచువల్ నాలెడ్జ్ ఇట్ కనెక్ట్స్ టు భాగవతం, భగవద్గీత, సమ్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ కాన్సెప్ట్స్. ఇది చూస్తుంటే అర్థమవుతుంది కదా, మన బాడీ ఎట్లా డిమినిష్ అవుతుంటది. దట్స్ వేర్ దట్స్ అ థింగ్. చదవండి మొత్తం ఇక్కడ వరకు చదవండి, ఓకేనా?
Srimad Bhagavatam, composed some 3000 years before Ovid's time, contains the following unique story that dramatically reveals the principles of reincarnation in action. India's great and pious monarch King Bharata, due to his extreme attachment to a deer, had to spend one life in a deer's body before again attaining a human form. King Bharata was a wise and experienced Maharaja who one might have thought would rule for thousands of years. But while in the prime of life, he renounced everything, his queen family and his vast empire, and went to the forest. In so doing, he is following the advice of the great sages of ancient India, who recommended that one devotee the latter part of one's life to self-realization.
Yes. One devote, and to devote ourselves. Who recommend that one devote the later part of life to self-realization. So we are practicing bhakti yoga, we are practicing spiritual life, we are trying to adopt these principles of devotional life. So it's for self-realization, to understand the soul's nature, then the body, the spirit, soul, these concepts. Yes, Mata, thank you for reading. And again, let us go through again round robin. Akinchan Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Would you like to read? Or yeah, we were there. Samyukta Mata, please continue. Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji. King Bharata knew that his position as a great monarch was not permanent. Therefore, he did not try to keep the royal throne until death. After all, even a king's body ultimately becomes dust, ashes, or food for worms and other animals. But within the body is the imperishable soul, the real self. Through the process of yoga, the self can be awakened to its true spiritual identity. Once this occurs, the soul need not spend another term of imprisonment within a material body. Understanding that the real purpose of life is to free oneself from the cycle of reincarnation, King Bharata journeyed to a sacred place of pilgrimage called Pulaha Ashrama in the foothills of the Himalayas. Therefore, the former king lived alone in the forest along the bank of the Gandaki river. Instead of his royal dress, he now wore only a deerskin garment. His hair and beard grew long and matted and always appeared wet, because he bathed 3 times a day in the river. Each morning, Bharata worshipped the Supreme Lord by chanting the hymns given in the Rig Veda. And as the sun rose, he recited the following mantra: The Supreme Lord is situated in pure goodness. He illuminates the entire universe. By virtue of his different potencies, he maintains all living beings desiring material enjoyment, and he bestows all benediction upon his devotees. Later in the day, he collected various fruits and roots, and as recommended in the Vedic scriptures, he offered these simple edibles to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then took them for his food. Even though he had been a great king, surrounded by worldly opulence, now by the strength of his austerities, all his desires for material enjoyment vanished. Thus he became free of the root cause of bondage in the cycle of birth and death. By his constant meditation upon the personality of Godhead, Bharata began to experience symptoms of spiritual ecstasy. His heart was like a lake filled with the water of ecstatic love, and when his mind bathed itself in that lake, tears of joy flowed from his eyes. Shall I continue, Prabhuji?
This also, please read.
Yes, Prabhuji. One day, while Bharata was meditating near the bank of the river, a doe came there to drink. While she drank, a lion in the forest nearby roared loudly. The doe was pregnant, and as she jumped in great fear and ran from the river, a baby deer fell from her womb into the swiftly flowing waters. The doe, shivering in fright and weak from the miscarriage, entered a cave where she soon died. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yeah, that is the scene. So immediately, Bharata Muni, Bharata Maharaj, the king, is attracted to. He wanted to save that the little deer. So see how the things works. Great king, he has good consciousness, but still fell down. See, he has reached the stage of bhava and fell down. So there are different stages, 9 stages of progression towards Krishna Prema. Right? Atho sadhu sangha bhajana kriya tata artha nivrutti అట్లా ఉంటుంది అనమాట. శ్రద్ధ, ఆసక్తి, దెన్ లాస్ట్కి వచ్చేసరికి భావ, ప్రేమ. సో భరత మహారాజా ఈ రీచ్డ్ అట్ ద స్టేజ్ ఆఫ్ భావ స్టేజ్. అంటే అంత మంచి డివోటీ కూడా ఏమైంది లాస్ట్కి ఆ చిన్న ఇప్పుడు ఈ సీన్ చూడండి. వన్ డే వైల్ భరత వాజ్ మెడిటేటింగ్ నియర్ ద బ్యాంక్ ఆఫ్ ద రివర్, ఎ డో కేమ్ దేర్ టు డ్రింక్. వైల్ షీ డ్రాంక్, ఎ లయన్ ఇన్ ద ఫారెస్ట్ నియర్ బై రోడ్ లౌడ్లీ. ఆ భయానికి పాపం the doe was pregnant, and as she jumped in great fear and ran from the river, a baby deer fell from her womb into the swiftly flowing waters. The doe, shivering in fright and weak from the miscarriage, entered a cave where she soon died. So adi ఇప్పుడు ఏం జరిగిందో చూద్దాం. సో యా ఎవరు చదువుతారు యాక్చువల్లీ? హరే కృష్ణ. I am over to you. Swapna Mata, you want to?
Bhavana wants to read, Prabhuji. Shall she?
Yeah. Go ahead. Please read, Bhavana.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
As the sage observed the fawn floating down the river, he felt great compassion. Bharata lifted the animal from the water and, knowing it to be motherless, brought it to his ashrama. Bodily differences are meaningless from the viewpoint of a learned transcendentalist. Because Bharata was self-realized, he saw all living beings with equal vision. Knowing that both the soul and the super soul, Supreme Lord, are present within the bodies of all, he daily fed the deer with fresh green grass and tried to make it comfortable. Soon, however, he began to develop great attachment for the deer. He lay down with it, he walked with it, bathed with it, and even ate with it. When he wanted to enter the forest to collect fruits, flowers, and roots, he would take the deer with him, fearing that if he left it behind, it would be killed by dogs, jackals, or tigers. Bharata took great pleasure seeing the deer leap and frolic forest or in the forest like a child. Sometimes he would carry the fawn on his shoulders. His heart was so filled with love that he would keep it on his lap during the day. And when he slept, the deer would rest upon his chest. He was forever petting the deer and would sometimes even kiss it. Thus, his heart became bound to the deer in affection.
Read this one also. Yeah.
Okay, Prabhuji. Being attached to raising the deer, Bharata gradually became neglectful of his meditation upon the Supreme Lord. He thus became distracted from the path of self realization, which is the actual goal of human life. The Vedas remind us that the human form is only obtained after the soul undergoes millions of births in a lower species of life. This material world is sometimes compared to the ocean of birth and death, and the human body is compared to a solid boat designed to cross the ocean. The Vedic scriptures and the saintly teachers or spiritual masters are compared to expert boatmen, and the facilities of the human body are compared to favorable breezes that will help the boat ply smoothly into its desired destination. If with all these facilities a person does not fully utilize his life for self-realization, then he commits a spiritual suicide and risks taking his next birth in an animal body. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Bhavana. Hari Bol. Nicely reading. Very nice.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Prabhuji and Mataji. This is very, very important paragraph. Attachment. How attachment drags us. After, human body is compared to a solid boat. We have to cross this ocean. Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi. Cycle of birth and death. It's ocean of birth and death. So we have to get rid of. We have to go away from this. So how can we do this? An example is given. This material world is sometimes compared to an ocean of birth and death. The human body is compared to a solid boat designed to cross this ocean. The Vedic scriptures and the saintly teachers, spiritual masters are compared to expert boatmen. And the facilities of the human body compared to favorable breezes. Facilities means discrimination power. Okay, discrimination power, which we have to utilize it properly. Nice example actually. Material world is compared to ocean of birth and death. Human body is just like a boat, solid boat, designed to cross this ocean. Vedic scriptures and spiritual masters is expert boatmen. And the facilities of the human body are compared to favorable breezes that help the boat ply smoothly to its desired destination. If with all these facilities, a person does not fully utilize his life for self-realization, then he commits spiritual suicide and risks taking his next birth in an animal body. We never know whether we get human body or only Krishna knows that. Daiva netrena. Bhagavad Gita, there is one verse. Karmana daiva netrena jantra ruda upatte. Under the Karmana daiva netrena. Daiva netrena అంటే మీకు తెలిసింది. So ఏ kind of body అనేది he decides. Supreme Lord decides according to our activities. So the more we perform devotional activities, we don't need to worry about this. We worry about how can I remember Krishna all the time. That's where we have to worry. Yeah, I'm talking to myself. I'm also still struggling due to material things, multiple things, material attachments, etc. The more we remember Krishna, the better we forgetfulness about all these things. Our sufferings also we can easily cross. That's the thing. The idea, the success is in the remembrance of Lord all the time. How can we do that? by chanting, by reading, by hearing, by performing, worshipping. Through that, we remember Supreme Lord. Yeah. So let us read some more. Another 10 minutes we can read. Okay. Yeah.
Shall I
Anybody?
continue, Prabhuji, as you
Yeah,
called me?
go ahead. Yes, please. Chadan Mataji.
Okay, yeah, Prabhuji. However, even though Bharata was aware of these considerations, he thought to himself, because this deed has taken shelter of me, how can I neglect it? Even though it is disturbing my spiritual life, I cannot ignore it. To neglect a helpless person who has taken shelter of me would be a great fault. One day, as Bharata was meditating, he began, as usual, to think of the deer instead of the Lord. Breaking his concentration, he glanced around to see where the deer was. He could not discover it. His mind became agitated, like that of a miser who has lost his money. He got up and searched the area around his ashrama, but the deer was now now
No way.
where to be found. Now where to be found. Bharata thought, when will my deer return? Is it safe from tigers and other animals? When shall I again see it wandering in my garden, eating the soft green grasses? As the day wore on, the deer still did not return. Bharata became overwhelmed with anxiety. Has my deer been eaten by wolf or a dog? Has it been attacked by a herd of wild boars or by a tiger who travels alone? The sun is now setting, and the poor animal who has trusted me since its mother died has not yet returned. He remembered how the deer would play with him, touching him with the points of its soft, fuzzy horns. He remembered how he would sometimes push the deer away from him, pretending to be annoyed with it for disturbing his worship or meditation, and how it would then immediately become fearful and sit down motionless a short distance away. My dear is exactly like a little prince. Oh, when will he again return? When will he again pacify my wounded heart? Unable to restrain himself, Bharata set out after the deer, following its tiny hoof prints in the moonlight. In his madness, he began to talk to himself. His creature was so dear to him that I feel as though I have lost my own son. Due to the burning fever of separation, I feel as if I were in the middle of a blazing forest fire. My heart is now blazing with distress. While fran- fran- frantically searching for the lost deer along the dangerous forest paths, Bharata suddenly fell and was fatally injured. Lying there at the point of death, he saw that his deer had suddenly appeared and was sitting at his side, watching over him just like a loving son. Thus, at the moment of his death, the king's mind was focused completely on the deer. In Bhagavad Gita, we learn, whatever state of being one remembers, he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. King
Okay,
Bharata
Mataji.
welcomes dear Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajate ante kalevaram tam tam evaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavita. So that's the thing. If you think about tiger, tiger consciousness, like in a person, every day, every meal, he need meat. He wanted to eat meat. So better get the body of tiger. You get that consciousness and you leave the body with that consciousness. He assumes that in the tiger body and then eat every day flesh. That's the thing. So we have to remember these important statements from Bharata Maharaj past time. So actually, these are all instructive lessons. How do we place our consciousness, our mind, our thoughts needs to be. Okay, so now let us read another 5 minutes and we'll wrap up. Okay, Sapan Prabhu or Pallavi Mataji or anybody likes to read?
Yeah,
Another
I
5
can
minutes.
read, Prabhuji.
Go ahead.
King Bharata becomes a deer. In his next life, King Bharata entered the body of a deer. Most living entities are not able to remember their past lives, but because of the spiritual progress the king had made in his previous incarnation, he could, even though in the body of a deer, understand the cause of his taking birth in that body. He began to lament, "What a fool I was! I have fallen from the path of self realization. I gave up my family and kingdom and went to a solitary holy place in the forest to meditate, where I always contemplated the Lord of the universe. But due to my foolishness, I let my mind become attached to and of all things a deer. And now I have justly received such a body. No one is to blame by myself, but myself. Even as a deer, Bharata, having learned a valuable lesson, was able to continue his progress in self-realization. He became detached from all material desires. He no longer cared for succulent green grasses, nor did he give a thought to how long his antlers would grow. Similarly, he gave up the company of all deer, male and female alike, leaving his mother in Kalanjara mountains, where he had been born. He returned to Pulahasrama, the very place where he had practiced meditation in his previous life. But this time he was careful never to forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead, staying near the hermitages of the great saints and sages and avoiding all contact with materialists. He lived very simple. He lived very simply, eating only hard, dry leaves. When the time of death came and Bharata was leaving the body of the deer, he loudly uttered the following prayer: "The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the source of all knowledge, the controller of the entire creation, and the super soul within the heart of every living being. He is beautiful and attractive. I'm quitting this body, offering obeisances unto him, and hoping that I may perpetually engage in his transcendental loving service." Hare Krishna.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhuji. So that's the thing. So he got the body of deer because he had performed so much austerity. He was almost the Bhava stage, Bhava stage of, just very next to Prema stage. So that he got the remembrance even though in the deer body. And he went to that the place Pulaha Ashrama, hmm, where great sages there, and he spent that last time is the deer life, and he assumed the form of a next the life of Jadabharata will continue here. See, let us see. I think we will wrap up here. We'll read on Friday. Okay. So the Bharata Maharaja's story is to understand 3 lifetimes. One is the king's body. It's a Rajarshi, king with saintly qualities. That's why it's called Rajarshi. Um, so this way he was remembering, right? What is he remembering here in the what a fool I was. I have fallen from the path of self. That means bhava stage. I gave up my family and kingdom and went to a solitary holy place in the forest to meditate, where I always contemplate the Lord of the universe. But due to my foolishness, I let my mind become attached to of all things a deer. And now I have just received such a body. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Ade Krishna చెప్తున్న instruction. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Whatever state of being one remembers, when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. So Papa, Bharata Maharaja, he thinks so much affectionately about the deer to take care of his completely consciousness distracted from Supreme Lord to deer, right? So and what happens? Is a smarana at the end of his life. He got the deer form, and but at least he performed some austerity, tapasya. He got the human consciousness in the deer body, so that he remembered what a foolish. So this was is lamenting now. What a foolish right now I'm in this body. I have justly received such a body. No one is to blame but myself. So again, he got the point. So again, he went back to, because he has the consciousness, he know the where he is situated. He went that Himalaya mountains where he had born. He returned to Pula Ashrama, where the place He had practiced meditation. This time was careful. He got the point, right? 2 lifetimes it lie in the. Now this time very careful, never to forget the Supreme Personality of God. Staying. This time means in the body, in the deer form only. And he stayed in his hermitages of these saints and sages, avoiding all contact with the Middle East. He lived very simply, eating only hard dry leaves. Deer em tintadi avve kada. So when the time of death came, Bharata was leaving the body of the deer. He loudly uttered the following prayer. The Supreme Personality of God is the source of all knowledge, controller of entire creation, super soul within the heart of every living being. He is beautiful and attractive. I am quitting this body, offering obeisance unto him, hoping that I may perpetually engage in his transcendental service. Now, in this life of Jada Bharata is a devotional life. We will discuss on Friday. Okay. So thank you so much for joining today, all the wonderful devotees. Anybody have any questions, or let us wrap up it? Is that anyone have any question? Is that okay? Is it clear? At least by reading, you are getting the point. The Prabhupada is pretty straightforward, easy to understand the knowledge, the analogies, statements. And that's why he is Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada. That's why he is giving this knowledge very easily manner. Anybody can understand. A bhavana, such a child, 8-year, 7th class, 8th class student also easily understand the spiritual knowledge. So if nobody have any questions, then we will wrap up, okay?
Prabhuji, one doubt.
Chepandi.
Prabhuji, ikkada Bharata Maharaj in the form of deer body lo still last moment lo kuda Krishna ne remember cheskuntunaru Prabhuji. Again next life lo why he didn't go to Krishna, why he had to take birth as Jada Bharata. I mean, I'm not aware of this story, so I just wanted to know. I mean, తన డిజైర్ లో చెప్పారు కదా, ఐ స్టిల్ సారీ ఐ వుడ్ లైక్ టు ట్రాన్సెండెంటల్ సర్వీస్ టు కృష్ణ అని చెప్పేసి లాస్ట్ లైన్ లో ఉంది కదా, అది సాటిస్ఫై.
Yes. Body matram adi inka animal body ane kada matadi, but consciousness is there. In order to get the he has to take the human form and perform devotional life and go back to God.
Acha, so only human body నుంచే person will go to.
అందుకే దుర్లభ మానుష జన్మ అంటారు కదా matadi.
Okay. So for that reason he has to take a human birth again.
ఇప్పుడు జడ భారత పాస్ట్ టైం అంతా కూడా కంప్లీట్ డివోషనల్ లైఫ్. సో ఈ 100% డివోటీ అయిపోతాడు. ఈవెంట్ బ్యాక్ టు గాడ్. అట్లా మళ్ళీ హ్యూమన్ ఫామ్ డివోటీ కాన్షియస్నెస్ కంప్లీట్లీ. ఫస్ట్ మహారాజా భరత్ కాన్షియస్నెస్ నుంచి ఇంకా ఇప్పుడు కంప్లీట్లీ భావ నుండి ప్రేమ స్టేజ్కి వెళ్ళిపోతారు. గో బ్యాక్ టు గాడ్. సో ఆ డీర్ కాన్షియస్నెస్, డీర్ బాడీ, హ్యూమన్ కాన్షియస్నెస్, అనిమల్ బాడీ, సో అది ఇన్కంపాటిబుల్ కాబట్టి హ్యూమన్ ఫామ్ అక్కడ యూ విల్ గెట్ బ్యాక్ రిగైన్ కాన్షియస్నెస్. ఓకేనా? ఎస్. ఎనీబడి హ్యావ్ ఎనీథింగ్? సపన్ ప్రభు, సంయుక్త మాతాజీ, అకించన్ ప్రభు, పల్లవి మాత, శిరీష మాతాజీ, Swapna Mataji. Is that okay? You are getting with this by reading these Srila Prabhupada books?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes,
yeah. Okay. We'll connect on Friday. Okay. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyascha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Transcendental Book Reading ki jai. Jai Gaura Hari Premanande Hari Hari Bo. See you all on Friday. Have a happy Krishna conscious night. Wednesday night, right? You are all in Wednesday night. I'm in Wednesday morning. So meditate upon Krishna actually. Krishna, cows, flute, peacock feather, nice pasturing, Krishna, eating lunch with Krishna. ఎన్నో ఆలోచిస్తాం మనం. We think many things, material things. Why don't we meditate before going to bed? Meditate. Remembrance of the Supreme Lord. Flute voice. Actually, Hare Krishna mantra anedi flute voice. It is a flute sound. At least while sleeping, put Hare Krishna mantra and sleep. It helps actually. Good conscious, good vibration. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. See you all on Friday.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanyavad.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.